Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Pension Fund Board at New Shire Hall. Thank you for making the effort to travel here. The County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? And please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the County Council's website. There is no fire alarm test scheduled for today. If the alarm sounds at any other point, I will adjourn the meeting and we will all make our way downstairs out of the main building and turn left. The muster point is at the far end of the building. Let us now move to the agenda items, and Sophie, would you report any apologies for absence?
Apologies received from Councillor Fain.
Thank you. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? I take that as a no. Thank you very much. We are now being asked to approve the public minutes of the meeting on the 25th of July as a correct record. If any members disagree with public minutes, please indicate now. I see no objections, so we will take that as carried unanimously. An updated action log has been included in the published papers for this meeting. If any members have questions on the action log, would they indicate, let me know now? Val, you have some questions.
We have the email. Are you future mitigating action? I just wondering if there are any timescale on these things.
Which one in particular? Did you say? Oh, okay, on the cyber. Yes. Sorry, when you said minute 5, I looked down the first page and a few of them. Okay, yeah, we can go back and find that out. Obviously, this action took a little bit of time because we had to get some further input from WNC to be able to provide the briefing note. We'll go back and clarify that to you.
And secondly, to do with meeting 11, page 16, on the July board meeting, there was a clash with the conference. I just wondered what difficulties you're actually experiencing, please, in getting a new date.
I think we're nearly there with the new date. So we've obviously been in contact with Democratic Services, and I think there's just a meeting it needs to go through. But Sophie, maybe you can comment more.
So consultation has happened between myself, the chair, and the monitoring officer, and then as per the constitution, it has to go to group leaders. It's currently with them, and we're hoping to reschedule the meeting next week, but I'll send a further clarification to the board once that's been confirmed.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got no more questions.
So we'll thank you for that, Val. We'll take the action log as noted. Item 3 is the governance and compliance report. Michelle, this is for you, I believe.
Yes, thank you. So there are separate reports at this meeting that are covering pension dashboards, gender pensions pay gap and fit for the future. So I won't go into any detail on those in this particular report. But there were a few sections that I just wanted to kind of give some further context on outside of what's already been published. So the first area, as is normally always the case lately, is around McLeod. So two elements of this. Obviously, there's the annual benefit statement angle and the implementation plan of the McLeod project itself. So on the annual benefit statements, for the majority of members, a fully compliant statement was issued, which included the McLeod position. So for the Cambridgeshire Fund, 99.3% of deferred statements were issued by the statutory deadline of the 31st of August. And just to put this into context, that's 29,479, and 98.8% of the active statements were also issued in time, equating to 23,004. So these covered cases where the pension was protected by the underpin, but either produced a zero addition where a member did not appear to have an underpin addition based on the information we hold, or members that could not have come into scope from McLeod because they just did not meet the relevant criteria. So they're all the ones that we did get out on time. So a very small number of members did not receive their statements on time. So these are the ones, the McLeod related ones are the ones where we had a positive guaranteed addition. And what we wanted to do, because this is obviously the first time we've ever included these in statements, we wanted to have an additional check on these records just to make sure that those actual guaranteed amounts were correct. Last thing we wanted to do was send out people's statements guaranteeing them an amount that wasn't correct. So we held those back purposely just so that we could double check those figures. And we also, not necessarily McLeod related, although they could have had a McLeod implication at all, we also held back pension sharing ordered records and records with an annual allowance implication, just basically to ensure, again, they needed some manual intervention to make sure they were correct. All of the statements that were held back, so 182 deferred and 280 actives, we did send a communication to let the members know, and the timescale for that was by the end of November, and we are on track to reissue or issue, I should say, those by that date. So what we've done, just to make sure in terms of a governance process we're compliant, we've deemed these as immaterial breaches and we've added them to our breaches log, and they will appear, or actually maybe in this report will be in the administration report, just to confirm that that was a slight breach there, but obviously for justifiable reasons in this case. So I think overall really good that we managed to get so many out. First time we've ever done it, so we were overall pleased with that. So in terms of the rectification for McLeod, as you're aware, we took a determination to the committee to allow an extension of rectification work to the 31st of August, as permitted by the regulations. So effectively, as long as we took that determination through the committee, it gave us that extra 12 months to be able to work on these cases. We're near completed with the pension records, and actually there's just a couple of those outstanding because there are a couple of complex cases, but the majority of those have all gone through the payroll and have all been completed. The next area we're looking at is survivor records, and we were originally waiting for some LGA letters and guidance on those to be able to proceed. We've now received that, so we will be looking at that area next, and we'll also be looking at death grants and trivial commutations, although I don't believe we've got any of those, but death grants will be included as well. So that's the next area, and actually because we've now got what we need and the numbers are quite low, we're actually hoping to bring some of those ahead of schedule and get those done by the end of this year as well. The only area of concern really with McLeod rectification is around transfers. We're awaiting some system development to be able to process these. So couple of issues with transfers. One is identifying them in the first place, and the second one, because the volumes are likely to be a lot higher, it would mean that manual intervention on these would be a lot more problematic than for some of the areas. So we do need that system development, and we're waiting to hear what's going on there. So moving on, just a bit of an update really about consultation updates. So the response to the access and fairness consultation are currently being reviewed by government, and we are expecting to hear later in the year. There could be a slight delay, obviously, with a bit of a change with the local government minister, but we'll obviously at the moment still hoping to hear fairly shortly. And we have put the consultation, our response to the consultation in the appendix as well, just for information. So what we're waiting, really, the main clarification is around the timescales, particularly around any areas that have identified any discrimination. We appreciate they are going to have higher priority than maybe some of the other areas, but we're obviously at this stage unsure of when that's going to come to us in terms of workload and how that's going to fit in with the other elements of the consultation as well. So yeah, just waiting to really understand what the impact of that will be. And also just to mention, a second consultation has also just been launched. So this one is the scheme improvements, access and protections. So there's 39 questions for this one to respond to by the 22nd of December. We will be issuing a response on this one as well. This one is looking at normal minimum pension age, access for councillors and mayors, academies, and new fair deal. So a lot going on in terms of things coming through and things that are being considered at the moment. Death grant distribution. So in the report, there is a reference to an ombudsman case. Just thought it'd be worth mentioning. We do get some complex cases come through from time to time. It's just the nature of the area. But we do already have really robust processes in place when we look at death grants. So we do ask relevant due diligence questions before we pay out death grants, and it also goes through a decision process, either through the operations manager or head of pensions, depending on the value. We do also, if we need to take up legal advice, we will do. So just wanted to provide you some assurance on that point, obviously, with what the pension ombudsman had said about that particular case. Usual reminder, skills and knowledge opportunities located in Appendix 1. If anybody does want to attend any of the conferences or events on there, please let myself or Madalena know. The Lola modules obviously are coming round for review, and we have set up with Hyman's now that they are sending automatic reminders on those. So hopefully they're coming through where they need to be. And very lastly, just to draw your attention to the policy reviews. So the overpayment of pension and debt recovery policy, that's been updated just effectively to strengthen some areas within that. And the reporting breaches of the law policy, not a lot to update on that one, but it was at the 3-year review. So we've updated the appendix with some further examples in there to include steps and materiality. That hasn't been to pension committee yet, so if anybody has any comments on that. That's really the extra detail of the report, and I do apologise ever with this one. It covers so much, but that's the key detail, but happy to take any other questions.
Thank you, Michelle. As usual, very comprehensive, very information rich. Any questions? Very.
Just more a comment. I'm just trying to find it about how good it is to see that councillors are going to have access to the scheme again. Just in the sort of general sense that I feel that councillors need to be properly remunerated, just because it kind of acts as a bar to who can stand to be a councillor. Those who can afford to, which is generally the retired, the self-employed. So this is another step towards making it possible for sort of a breadth of experience for councillors. So yeah, I just applaud that.
Thank you, Barry. If there are
these are just a couple of really minor things, actually, Michelle. Page 24, page 26, there's a new number of typos on the numbering. They go from 3 to 5 and back to 3.
Okay, thank you, Val.
Sorry.
Hoping I've made that work okay. Yeah, okay. One of the things that I really came through on this report was there's a lot of significant future changes potentially for members. So the review of the third review of the state pension age, the review into inheritance tax as regards to pensions, and the overall look at how the pension dashboards will be there. Is there a plan to sort of create a communication strategy for members? Because these are potentially quite big impacts. I appreciate their potential impacts.
Yeah, so we have a communication strategy in place, and each year we update the plan effectively. So that will be coming. It will go to the committee in March, and I'm not sure whether it's down for pre-scrutiny or post-scrutiny. So you'll either see it in January or April, effectively, where we try and map out for the whole year the method of communication. Obviously, what's within that communication is topical of what's going on at the time. And like you rightly say, there's a lot coming through, and actually some things we're not clear what's going to happen yet. We're waiting on consultation responses, and a lot of it is timing. So a lot of the communication up to date has been more so maybe about McLeod, because that's definitely happening, and we're obviously dealing with that at the moment, although the message with that was do nothing, you know, we've got this under control. In terms of some of the other things coming through, I think when the consultation and everything gets finalised, we'll start looking at communications via newsletters and obviously updating our websites and things like that. Pension dashboards, we're still waiting, obviously, nationally to find out a bit more. We're obviously going into the testing phase at the moment, so we're going to see how that goes. And presumably once we get a dashboard available point when it goes live, or due to go live to the public, we will start again thinking about, you know, what communications are coming out nationally, what we need to do, and get off the back of that. So Corey and his team effectively look at the communication side, but I would say with some confidence that we're always looking about what we need to be telling people and when, and keeping that under review. But at the moment it's quite difficult because there's so many unknowns with a lot of these things.
I could just add one very brief comment to that. We have a statutory duty to communicate certain things if it's changes to scheme rules, and we're very clear on when we need to do that and which segments of the membership we need to communicate. Things where it's changing generally, let's say tax rules, we would definitely think it's good practice to obviously communicate that, but there isn't the same legal duty to do so. Sorry, is my microphone working? I need to be closer.
You were facing away from the microphone and I couldn't hear what you said.
Shall I just say it briefly again?
Please.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Yes, so sorry. If our scheme rules change, we will have a legal duty to communicate to the relevant segments of the membership about those changes, and we will always have an eye on that and to do so in good time. If things change generally, that might be overriding, such as tax rules, which would apply across the whole universe of pensions, then we will still inform membership, but it's a different responsibility. We don't have that same legal duty if it doesn't. It's not our change in scheme rules. So just a bit of clarification about when we have to and when we do things out of good practice.
Can I just add to that there is a annual communication that goes out to members, and I take the point about the issues that you were raising, but actually for some members, the critical thing is when are the payment dates? So that annual communication is looking at the things that are affecting a whole stack of members. So payment dates is most definitely in there. And there are one or two other things that always go in just to advise members about what we are doing with some of their data that we are absolutely required to do. But it might be worth, I'll see if I can find and forward you a copy of what has gone out in the past. I think there is a requirement for members, if they really want to know, to go to websites and do a bit of digging. We don't publish absolutely everything. There is, as Michelle has very effectively pointed out, just so much happening.
Yeah, I just really wanted to clarify, I think it's page 26, about the Palestine Solidarity Campaign's letter, whether the fund has had to take any actions. Because just for full disclosure, I went to a Unison pensions event at the end of September, and we actually had people from the Scheme Advisory Board sort of updating that and about legal advice that was sort of given, which was basically each fund was sort of covered as long as their responsible investment policy was quite clear in what they invest in, what actions they do on the responsible investment side of things.
Sorry, I wasn't. I generally didn't realise there's a question. I mean, just in terms of where we are, we've obviously received a letter. We've taken some local advice alongside some other funds, which generally is that we need to wait, and what the outcome of that is really we need to wait for what is coming out centrally, but equally SAB have contacted government to ask for their position statement from themselves on it. What we are doing locally, which will appear in the public stewardship report in the investment subcommittee, is we are exploring what holdings we have. Obviously, we're aware of what the PSC have said we hold, so we're looking at how our holdings actually compare with what they say we hold at a particular fixed point in time, and also with reference to other UN lists in association with this. And we will hopefully be bringing that information to the next ISC, along with a bit more context. So at the moment, we're trying to establish what stocks we actually hold, which might need a bit more focus in terms of understanding the engagement that's been that has taken place already. And that, as I say, that will be in public.
Thank you, Mark. If there are no more questions, then I will take it that we have actually noted the governance and compliance report and move on to item 4, which is the gender pensions gap report. Madalena, I believe you will be introducing this report. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report presents data regarding the gender pensions gap within the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund. As defined in the report, the gender pension gap refers to the disparity in retirement income between men and women. The data listed in the report has been provided by the fund's actuarial advisor, Hymans Robertson, and it's based on the fund's data as of the 31st of March 2024. Just to highlight a few findings, the analysis found that female members receive on average just 46 pence for every £1 paid to male members. The gap is consistent across all age groups and is most pronounced between ages 46 to 51 and 81 to 90. Key drivers for this gap include lower average salaries for women, higher rates of part-time work and career breaks. All of those factors significantly reduce pensionable service and benefit accrual. In sections 3.11 to 3.15, you will see a few recommendations of changes that can be implemented to address the gender pensions gap. You will see that the majority of actions focus on engaging with employers, educating members, and improving transparency in annual reporting. Overall, it's important to increase awareness of decisions that can impact members' pensionable pay and benefit accrual. Lastly, I think it's important to note that this report is for information only, and the recommendations are currently considered best practices. As Michelle mentioned earlier, the Access and Fairness consultation is still pending, so and this consultation includes gender pensions gap as a topic. It was agreed with the pension committee that once the government response to the consultation is published, the fund will consider any necessary measures, and the officers will look into creating an action plan, including more specific actions. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right.
Just again, just a general comment. Part of that Unison event, we had Becky Clough on Scheme Advisory Board, who seems to be gender pension gap is her sort of project. So yeah, I found that's quite interesting facts and possible sort of remediation of that. But one of the things that came up, well, I kind of spotted it, but there are obvious things about there being a gender pay gap lying underneath the gender pension gap, but also breaks in service, but also a tendency for women when they return to work after a gap, possibly not, to bring up a family, etc., and not being able to afford to pay into their pension, so they're not opting out. So those people might not be captured in any sort of LGPS kind of analysis of gender pension gap because they're no longer members.
Thank you, Chair. When I read this report, I found it actually rather shocking from being a woman. But I haven't got a question on that. I can see the reasons for why women don't have such higher pensions, you know, it goes to gender pay gap and all that sort of things. But I just wondered one thing. You mentioned the average pension pot for a woman is about 69k, and the average for a man is 205,000k. I just wonder, when the pension statements go out, you know, sort of annually, does the statements actually say how much is in their fund, or does it say how much they're likely to get as a part of their pension based, you know, sort of on their the amount of years they've worked and all that side of things? What information do they actually get?
Yeah, so it's the pension that would be payable at retirement is the information that's provided on there. So it will give information about the total service that's on there, the pension options and nomination options and things like that. And if there's a spouse's benefit due or anything like that. So that's the information. We don't tend to do it in terms of pension pots like they might do in a DC scheme or something like that. So we will just basically project what the pension value would be, depending obviously if you're an active or a deferred member. The statements would look differently to if you'd already ceased, to whether you were carrying on, but it's at a point in time and then projected forward to what you'd expect to get.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification, Michelle.
Yeah, just one sort of final point. So if someone wants to opt out, are they, is it pointing out to them about the 50-50 option? Because that could be another way of mitigating the gender pensions gap.
I know we've obviously got some communications, and the website obviously relates to all of this. I think with opt-outs, it's a difficult area because there's two different mechanisms effectively. So for up to 3 months, it's a complete employer responsibility. So we would never, in most cases, even know about those, which is why it's quite hard to get true opt-out figures, which is why the consultation's kind of saying it needs to come from employer. We do sometimes get the over 3 months one, but not necessarily, like your comment before, the reasons why people are opting out. So in terms of whether they know that's an option, I will double check, but it would certainly be something that we would pick up through some of these actions that we're talking about here. So really, when we're talking about the gap, we're looking at you know, what information is available to members, such as the 50-50 would be better than opting out completely. People remembering, you know, if they're on 50-50, they can go up to, you know, the full benefit at any point as well. Obviously looking at, you know, are AVCs an option for people? Have people looked at APCs? And what we've tried to do with our website is actually change the terminology that we use on that, to actually change it to life events, to make it kind of resonate maybe a bit more with our members, that, you know, if you take a break, did you know you could do this and that? So I think the information's there, but whether we could do a bit better on the signposting at various points, we'll definitely look at that in regards to what we're kind of looking at here.
I was just going to say, it has to be remembered this is a multi-employer scheme where we are providing the administration for hundreds of employers across the region, and therefore the responsibility around, well, contractually enrolling people automatically in the scheme and dealing with opt-outs is at the employer level. We can obviously provide materials, we can provide information, but the actual interaction for that aspect is not with us. We come in later. So I thought I'd just clarify that if it wasn't already apparent.
Thank you for that clarification, Mark. If there are no other
I have
questions.
one question, please, Chair. Michelle, you mentioned about they could probably the women could pay AVCs, but is this actually my understanding is, please tell me if I've got this wrong, the AVCs go into a different pot they'll go into a DC pot, not a DB pot. And therefore, I just wondered if paying the AVCs is actually really a good approach, because they're not getting the benefit of a final salary, average salary sort of pension.
Yeah, so it's a different arrangement, but still a benefit of the scheme that obviously we offer AVC arrangements. I think the benefit for those is the tax relief that you get on the AVCs. But it's just a different mechanism. And I think the key thing here is about information and choice. So obviously APCs are different, and it depends, you know, if someone's had a period of leave and want to pay back contributions for that period, that is one thing. As you say, AVCs are a different mechanism that, you know, you can pay into on a regular basis, and it you know, materializes differently at retirement. We obviously see what that value is worth and look at it at that point. But yes, it is a DC scheme. It's different. It's just a different option that people can consider if they did think, okay, I, you know, did have a break in service, I didn't buy back, what other options are there for me? That would be something that somebody could consider. So I don't think, you know, some scenarios might not be right for everybody, but I think our role is, as much as we can, is getting the information out there. And as Mark rightly says, what we can also support the employers with to make sure that their employees are getting all the information as well. So that's where we see our role in all of this. Obviously, the gap is a result of employer decisions effectively and member decisions, and kind of, you know, by the time it comes to us, it is what it is. But in terms of communication, if we can really up our communication in terms of members and employers, hopefully some of these issues will kind of see to not fully resolve, but kind of come down over the next few years, because that communication and that awareness is there of all the different options.
Okay, I see that. It's just that I just wondered, I know there's a thing about advice, and I don't really want to get into that, but the communications, if someone had the option to put in a AVC or to do the buyback scheme, which I didn't know about, would somebody be guiding them, say, to actually, it would be better for you to do the buyback scheme? Because obviously if they go down the AVC route, which is more of a DC, then the investment risk is actually on the employee, whereas the investment risk, if it's they go into the stay in the DB scheme with the buyback, is obviously on the fund itself. It's not their risk on the failure of the investments.
No, and that's a really good point, especially around, so we cannot give any financial advice at all, which is why everything that we do give is for information. And quite often, you know, especially, well, with transfers, for example, you know, over 30,000, we have to say, please take financial advice. We can't say, we can just obviously give all the information there. There are certain restrictions with APCs, depending on what type of contract you take out. There's also medical implications as well with some of these things. So some of them are bound by regulation and timescales and things like that anyway. So somebody might not, a timescale might have been elapsed, they might not be able to do that. But we wouldn't, certainly we would give options, but we certainly wouldn't say you would be better to do this. But we would say possibly with an APC, your employer would, you know, pay so much of it and this is what you would pay. And we'd give all the information for a member to make an informed decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognise, obviously, people's tax rates would impact the benefit of doing different things like AVCs. And if someone quite, you know, and also an individual is deciding the level of risk they want to take in doing the AVCs, in terms of, we've got some really low risk options and some much higher risk options. And if an individual puts something in compounded over 40 years, which it could significantly outperform the DB benefits. So you have to be really careful about, you know, the assumptions as to what might be the benefit of different options, because everybody is is different in terms of their personal circumstances and the risk they want to take. But I take your point that DB benefits are generally perceived to be better.
I mean, it's the other thing. If you, I don't know, maybe you do put this in the communications. You know, if they recommended that somebody speaks to a financial advisor on the particular decision. You know, if they want, you know, putting that in the communications about, you know, which is the best for them or whatever, then speak to a financial advisor, which I think quite a lot of papers do these days.
Yeah, I'll take that away to double check what we do say. As I say, I know we definitely do for higher value transfers. I can't recall whether we do for all of our, you know, our general information forms on everything we do. So I'll take that away and I'll double check.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just coming back to Barry's point about opting out forms in the 50/50 section. I just looked at our forms and the form signpost member to the website, and it offers information about the 50/50 options before we complete the form.
Thank you. Not such a question as such, but a comment. One of the things I think we do have to be careful about with things like buying extra pension in whatever form is that it assumes the person has cash available. And if, for example, you've come out of a period of sickness where you've not been at work, that extra cash may be very tight. So just to say, I'd be interested to see what comes out of the committee meeting from an employer perspective, because we can't assume that someone will be able to pay back, particularly towards the end of their working career. It's much easier to have a longer run in to build those entitlements.
Thank you, Tom. If there are no more questions, we've been asked to note the contents of the report and look forward to the action plan at a later stage. And now we can move on to item number 5, which is the pensions dashboard update. I believe that's coming from yourself, Mark. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be fairly brief in introducing it, but happy obviously to take any questions. The headlines are that as of today, we are connected to the dashboard ecosystem. Our connection was sitting there with an embargo date as at today, but it obviously goes live today, which was an important first step. I think what I would say is there's been very little testing across the entire dashboard ecosystem with funds. We believe there's only been a handful of matches that have actually taken place. So what we're now moving into is a period where there will be some user testing, primarily driven by the Money Helper dashboard. So they're going to ramp up to about 300 users testing, then to a few thousand, and then up to a maximum, I think, of 20,000 users is planned before dashboards are scheduled to go live. Going live to the general public is a year away at the earliest. We understand it could be early 2027. And what that means is, in order to get some testing, we're going to have to get our software supplier to send some cases through the system for us to be able to test it over the next year, because the chances of actually getting cases coming through naturally is probably quite low, especially initially. So that's the first thing I'll say around connection and testing. We have made changes, as you can see in the report, to our data matching policy. What we're trying to do is obviously get as many to match automatically, but still making sure we're matching to the correct individual. And the reason we've made the changes is because the national advice that came out gave clarity over what are verified data items. And what we were able to do was to have more assurance over some of the data items that are not our core match, which is our national insurance number. And so we've effectively aligned ourselves with that advice in that we only need that and one other data item for a full match, and then we explain in the report that how we achieve a partial match as well. So we're a bit more relaxed than we were because we now understand the assurance that and the verification that's taking place at the dashboard end. The final thing I'd say is that the area where we've been doing the most niggly work, I think it's fair to say, is around AVCs. Because in order to, you may recall, sorry, we've got Utmost and both single source here, haven't we? Yeah, sorry. We've got multiple source going on in another fund as well, but here we've got our main AVC provider, Prudential, but also a legacy provider that we used in the past, now called Utmost Life. They both are sending data to us for us to send to the dashboard ecosystem. There have been nationally delays in resolving this, so we are getting data from the providers, but the interface to load to our system is the area which is not quite working at the moment. But that's not just us, that is literally everyone who uses our software. And I understand for some other suppliers, the connection has not even been made yet. So we are broadly where we would hope to be, certainly connected. We may be reporting any material breach regarding AVCs, but we certainly don't believe it's material. But that development is happening very, very rapidly. So within a space of a couple of weeks, we would hope to be clear on that as well. Having said that, we understand that there is no ability to even view AVC data at the dashboard end anyway at the moment. So even if we sent the data for AVCs to the dashboard, it isn't visible at the dashboard end anyway, hence why I also think it's immaterial. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions on dashboards.
Thank you, Mark. I have one question. You mentioned the number of people testing. At some point, are they going to attempt 20,000 people simultaneously hitting the system so that you're looking at peak capacity, not just the ability to do one after the other?
I wouldn't imagine they'd be able to get them all at the same time, because I think what they're doing is they're so for example, we have a colleague and colleagues indeed who are trying to get into the testing so that we can definitely get information coming through to us. But they're very carefully controlling that. And for example, if you put your name forward now, you will only be able to do it later. I think the chances of all at once are very, very low. I think 20,000 is the total that over a particular defined period that they're looking to send through. But we are talking, remember, about not only, okay, there might be one main dashboard, lots of commercial dashboards as well. But then you've got, hundreds, if not thousands of funds that they are sending data to see if they've got any data to be sent back. But I think you're talking about, can a single dashboard cope with 20,000 at the dashboard end, aren't you?
I think my concern was that at some point in the future, you said it might be as late as 2027, something will hit the media and say, you can go and check on where your pensions are. And a whole stack of people will rush immediately to try and do that. And I'm just wondering whether they're not only talking about, they're testing the functionality of the systems, but they're also testing somewhere the capacity of the system. Because the last thing we want to see it do is on the first day, it to crash because everybody tried to do it.
Yeah, so I think so. The point is they are ramping up, definitely. So there's a very clear ramp up from hundreds to low thousands to higher thousands. So they will definitely be testing capacity. It won't be all at once, and I don't think it would be. with the volumes that are possible when you go live. To be clear, we are concentrating on the area of our responsibility here. Whether the dashboard holds up is obviously a matter for the dashboard ecosystem itself. What we are concerned about is, can we cope with the volumes that will flow through to us, both in terms of can the system cope and can we cope with anything that falls out of it. So that's where we will have our particular focus, and that will clearly be a significant factor below the volumes that will go into the dashboard end. This is just the obviously just the cases which are relevant to our fund.
Can I just ask one question, Mark? Do you have, if you're having to, dashboard goes live, this scenario is dashboard goes live and you get, I don't know, 1,000 queries on things. Do you have the capacity to actually respond to those thousands quickly? Yourselves with whatever queries they get.
Not right now. If we got, sorry, if you're talking about additional queries, then clearly that would be a problem, because I think we are identifying that there will be a number of areas where it will have an impact. Obviously, the full matches, it should have no impact because the data should be provided automatically back. The partial matches is something that we are aware of, and I think we will need to put additional resource in to cope with them. But again, for the ones where we can resolve them, it will be very straightforward. I think it will be if there's an outstanding workflow there where it will cause a breach in terms of timescales. For example, the unprocessed levers that you're already aware of. But it is what it is. We have a managed project to deal with it, so it's certainly something that we could explain quite in a quite straightforward manner to the regulator if we ran into problems there. I think the area where we are less certain is if it produces non-dashboard related inquiries, such as estimates, such as transfers out and the like. If there was a ramp, so what we are looking at is, is there any way we can identify whether the likelihood of that in a year or a year and a half's time, let's say, and what we would need to put some support in, recognizing it might not be perfect on day one. So that's part of our business planning process for this year, basically.
It's a bit of a crystal ball, really, isn't it?
It's really difficult because even if you look at other countries, there's not necessarily extremely close parallels to us. We don't know what friction, let's say, things like the identity verification will, if someone is interested in dashboards, are they prepared to go through the identity verification process, for example? We don't know if there'll be any drop off from that. We don't know how the promotion will work and what the timeline is when the most people will hit. So lots of uncertainties, but we will have 6 months notice.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you'll have 6 months' notice. The board's being asked to note the contents of the report and note the data matching policy, which is sections 3.2 to 3.7 and Appendix A. I believe we've done that, so thank you. Madalena, can I ask you to briefly introduce the Pension Board Effectiveness Review? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So this report presents the outcomes of the 2025 Cambridgeshire Pension Board Effectiveness Review, along with an update on the 2024 action plan. As highlighted in Appendix 2, all actions identified in 2024 have been completed. Referring back to the 2025 exercise, as you know, the survey was conducted in August and September and included 51 questions across 7 key governance areas. 5 out of 6 members who received the survey also responded. Just to mention, the aim of the review was to assess how effectively the board is functioning and to identify opportunities for improvement. Overall, the results indicate that the board is operating effectively, with 79% of responses being either agree or strongly agree. The highest scoring area was management of meetings, with an 85% agreement rate. Sections 3.9 and 3.10 detail areas where responses were either disagree or neutral, along with proposed actions or comments. Just to mention, no strongly disagree ratings have been received. Just to highlight, similar to last year, one of the key areas of improvement is the collaboration between the pension board and the pension committee. In the table in section 3.9, we've highlighted the actions already taken to address this, but we welcome any suggestions either during this meeting or afterwards by email to either myself or Michelle. Lastly, as mentioned in sections 3.11 and 3.12, we aim to implement the actions we've identified by the end of the financial year. And once guidance is issued by the government, we will seek to introduce independent governance reviews aligned with the valuation cycle. This is everything I wanted to cover. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for the report. I've just got two comments. Is one, I'm very, very disappointed that one person obviously didn't respond to the review, and I assume there's been a chase-up process and you've ended up hitting your head against the wall.
Yes, we did send reminders. Yeah.
Okay. Next thing I would like to ask, and it's something I've been asking for several years. When is there going to be an independent review on the effectiveness of the board? I believe there was one about 5 years ago, and I know it was delayed because of various things happening, which I can't remember all the specifics of it, but I just now repeat the question.
Yes, and rightly so. So where we are with that at the moment, we're actually waiting to hear as a result of Fit for the Future, what is going on with the independent review. So we do understand that there will definitely be one, and that we'll be required to have one. I think at the moment, there's discussion around how often that should be and when that is best placed to sit effectively. We've got a meeting coming up with our governance advisors, where we're going to look at this area, maybe a bit ahead of the curve to what else is going on, to see what we think is likely to come out of it. Along with other areas as well, some of the other policy pieces in there as well. But effectively, as soon as we get that clarification from government that, we absolutely have to do it, these are the timescales you need to do it. We were kind of waiting for that to come. Obviously, it's taken maybe a bit longer, and we've waited for that rather than maybe gone ahead with it in the meantime, as we used to do. So the assurance I can give you is it's definitely on the cards. It might even be as early as next year, or it could be that we get the clarification early next year and they say within 2 years or what have you, but we'll certainly be picking that up.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I just wondered, when is your meeting with your government's advisors, if it's still to be arranged?
Sorry, yes, they contacted us because with quite a few things, we like to try and be a bit of ahead of a curve with some things. So they contacted us to see if it was something we'd be interested in discussing kind of early with them. So we've gone back and said yes. So we're just waiting for them to arrange a date, and then we're going to go through some of this in more detail to see exactly how things are positioned at the moment, what we can only look at what's likely to happen, and then once everything is set in stone, we'll obviously convert that into some proper actions.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle.
This is probably totally irrelevant, but the only thing that was just going through my mind when you were saying, well, looking at effectiveness reviews and looking at planning forward, do we have any understanding of what local government reorganisation might impact on membership of the of whether there will be one or two commit. I mean, just what will happen?
We have clearly been discussing with the Section 154 officer of the administrative authority, and providing some high level information to feed into the process. I mean, at the end of the day, and remembering the team has been through local government reorganisation with the Northamptonshire Fund. So we are completely aware of the processes of how ultimately an administrative authority is chosen, and then what impact that has in terms of the governance and the workflow and all those kind of things. So we are providing information. It will ultimately help inform, and we will continue to do so once the options on the table are understood, and then obviously ultimately once the final option is chosen. Then we will provide further information that will enable a decision to be made around what is the appropriate administrative authority. And of course, if you like, the volumes, etc., might flow into it. Politics will clearly flow into that decision as well. And out the other side, of course, will be additional work for the team, because quite literally everybody who is employed by any local authority employer within Cambridgeshire will be moving employer and have potential options. Sorry, was a specific area of interest?
No, it was just a presumably there will be just one administering authority for what is currently the whole of Cambridgeshire.
That's
but
correct.
then the employer members, will they be just from that administering authority? I mean, and then you start shaking everything up in terms of who's on committees and boards, and that was going through my mind, that there could be a period of change, and whilst an external effectiveness review would be useful, if the change is big enough, it may have less value than waiting for everything to stabilize somewhat. That was really what was just going through my mind. And it's totally off topic, and I apologize for that.
Dennis, I think actually you've got a very good point there. You know, at what point is this effectiveness review actually at a good point? Because there's so much change all the time. I think it's a difficult one. I would agree with you there.
Okay, thank you. So the board has been asked to note the feedback provided, approve the proposed course of actions to improve the effectiveness of the board in the areas identified, and to note the progress against the actions identified as part of the 24 effectiveness review exercise. So I am taking that we have effectively done that. Thank you. Can I then move on to item 7, the administration performance report? Mark, can I ask you to introduce this briefly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would characterise administration at the moment as we are doing really well on our business plan activities, and most are progressing how we'd like, and particularly the major projects. Remembering the major projects have separate reports, things like the valuation, for example, things like dashboards, things like McLeod, are moving how we would hope. We have certainly had a difficult period around the business as usual, and that's flowed through into some of our KPIs you've seen here. The particular area I think of concern would be where we're not doing retirements whether that be from active status or from deferreds in a timely manner. So what I did over the last month, I have actually moved 4 people around to help support that area and try to bring it completely up to date certainly by the end of November. So I'm expecting the KPIs to be challenging, probably through November, and then hopefully significantly improve in December. All things being equal, that's what should happen because of the amount of what we put in. Of course, we're always prone to people leaving, people being absent for various reasons, workflow being higher than we expect. But what we've had probably since the summer when we lost 3 people in a very short period, and then had other issues ongoing and increased volumes due to the end of the year school leavers in the education establishments. We've had everything going on at once, which has caused the real pressure, hence me needing to move people around. So I think the KPIs are not where I want them to be. Hopefully in December they will start to really turn that corner and look a lot better. Having said that, I mean, certainly the informal complaints have picked up in this period slightly higher than we would expect. I normally expect single digit. They are a bit higher. The feedback from members is not at the usual level, which is normally just tucked below 4 out of 5. It's in the 3s this period. So there's a lot of things that are pointing towards it not being as good as it has been in the past. But we have taken quite significant steps to try to turn it around, basically. I think the rest of the report probably speaks for itself. Obviously, there's some movement on risks. We are likely to have a couple of extra pooling risks come through in the next period, so we're looking to put a couple more in. One will drop off, I think, very soon. We do expect government approval of our pool, the pool we've chosen to be formalised, probably hopefully by the next time we come to you. I think I'm happy to pause there and see if there's any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just remind members that appendices 2, 9 and 10 are confidential. If you have any questions on those, if we can wait until after agenda item 10, the exclusion of press and public, that would be great. Thank you. So any questions?
Yes, sorry, I've got loads. I'm really sorry, guys. First of all, on page 91, 1.1, it says administration. The Pension Committee and the board are responsible for the governance and the administration of the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund. To be honest, the board is not responsible. We're responsible for assisting scheme managers to meet regulation and other legislation relating to governance and administration of the scheme. I just wonder if that could be amended for another time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's been.
I've only just picked it up. And then on page 92, item 3.1, it says about there's a 8,298 calculation tasks. I just wondered, what is this actually telling us? What am I supposed to learn from this? I don't know. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry. That's been
that sort of a message with it.
So that is the context of the numbers above. So this has been there for many years. I think the very moment we were asked to provide some sort of further idea of what the administration quality looks like in terms of what were customers saying, for example, our scheme members. In doing so, and the number, so not only that is if you like, the customer score from our surveys, but equally the number of complaints we get, which are informally dealt with by the operations manager. When we did that, we felt giving an absolute number of the number of complaints is completely meaningless unless you have an understanding of how many how many calculations, etc., we are running. And so it's giving you the context of, we've got a, you know, I think it's this time, is it about just over 10, isn't it, about 13 complaints, but we're doing thousands of calculations to generate that number of complaints. So it's context.
Okay, so a bit more context then. How many people are actually involved in doing this 8,298? I'm not expecting you to put these in reports.
No. It
moving
would
forward.
be probably about 30 people, I guess. Potentially. I mean, it depends on exactly what they're doing, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. 3.2 talks about your surveys. And you've there's been 443 surveys, and you get about an 8 to 11% return. Are you actually happy with the return?
I understand it's in line with what we would expect to get back. So we have a communication specialist who has come from. It's been with us for a long time, but it came from sort of like the private sector, and I think the understanding is that is broadly what you would get. These are the short form surveys whereby if you have an interaction, you get sent an email or a message with that survey. Very few questions, just trying to understand how you are, and of course you get an awful lot of people who simply don't respond. In the same way as, like if I get one, I don't respond.
Well, I'm just wondering, and I don't know the answer to this, whether there's actually an overload of surveys at the moment from sort of not just the pension scheme, but from everywhere, and every sort of, you book a hotel room, oh, what's the booking process? Okay, you do this, you do that. And I don't know the answer to it, but I'm just wondering if people are getting overloaded, but I don't expect you to have an answer for that.
I mean, my view on it is I'm okay with the volumes coming through, bearing in mind the difficulties of getting responses. I think, and bearing in mind that those individuals who have a legitimate complaint or a gripe about our performance are the ones most likely to respond. If when we're at towards the 4, I'm always very, very happy with that as feedback. I think it becomes challenging when we are do have pressures in admin. So I'm quite comfortable with this number. I'm comfortable with the number. I'm comfortable with where it comes out, but I recognise the challenges around it.
Okay, I have got a few more, but I don't know whether I ought to give other people a chance to say a few things.
Thank you. I was just to say, I think given what you said, it was quite prudent to add the new risks in the report. So the failure to prevent data breaches and processing errors. And I think it's fair that you've moved people around to improve the processing times. I did have one question about the timeframes, which is December realistic given the time to, if you move 4 people across, do they need much onboarding into those new tasks? Is that a fair timescale for yourselves, or is that going to be really quite tight?
Sorry. Right. Okay. So what I've done is I've temporarily put an extra 4 people in, effectively to bring us back to where we need to be. And in the meantime, we have recruited 2 vacant positions. So of the 3 people who left, for various reasons, I should add, the last one has already been recruited and is in. So 2 of them have been in for a number of weeks now. So we're building up obviously their skills. Temporarily, we've moved 4 people from elsewhere in the service to support that area, recognising it is obviously so critical, and there were higher volumes flowing through around post-August. So I think we will obviously keep a close eye on it. We always expect certain vacancies. We always expect certain performance issues or absence issues, but we just need to be probably more focused on, if in the retirements area we have a higher level than we know we can sustain, we need to parachute some support in probably quicker, I would say.
Okay, so you're comfortable.
As I said, I was very careful in saying all things being equal. If something else happens, like a number of leavers, more performance issues, absences, etc., then that will create the need perhaps to retain extra support in there for longer.
Well, you've got a couple of minutes.
Okay, first of all, duplication of information, actually the structure of the report. We have an executive summary, we have a main body, and then we obviously have all the appendices. Some of the executive summary and the main body are quite, parts are duplicating. Also, you have to, it's almost like dangling a carrot. You say something in the exec summary, we get a tiny little bit more in the main body, and then we have to go into the appendix. It almost seems you've got to keep, you know, the report is not easy to read and follow through. You have to keep going sort of backwards and forwards to find, oh, this is what I'm finding actually when I'm reading this. I know you're trying to make the report shorter, but, and I don't really know the answer to how doing this, but is there a case of the board and the administration team and that getting together and actually saying what we need outside of a meeting? And would that actually help to rejig the actual what information we get, or is there a need under some information that I really don't know about, that you have to present everything that you do present?
I think it's probably a bit mixed. So this structure and the style of the reports we have to do in line with Cambridgeshire County Council reports. And one of the things we do have to do is the executive summary, because the rationale behind that is somebody in theory should be able to pick up a report and skim through that and pick up the key detail. Whether we can do more about the duplication and the style within those sections is probably something, if the board agrees, we could take offline and, you know, receive suggestions and look at that aspect. But it would have to stay within the structure of this, but happy to do that if that's agreed.
I'm waiting for your comments, Dennis.
I think at this point, I'm not going to comment. As you're probably aware, my time as a parish councillor comes to an end in 196 days. Not that I'm counting in any way, and therefore I'll be standing down from the board. So what you're talking about is the future, and I think therefore it's probably not that relevant that I make much in the way of comment. Personally, the hack this time was very information dense. There's a lot of material in there, and it's demonstrating very effectively the load on Mark's team to actually make things happen. And God bless the government, they may be making it worse as we come forward. So I was not personally that unhappy with it, but I'll take views from others if there's a strong wish to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I didn't see this as an issue. I sort of get your point that you end up almost reading what you've already read. But yeah, I get the structure, and I didn't find it so difficult. I get the point of having an executive summary, and yeah, you may read the same information but in more detail further on. That's how I see it anyway.
I mean, to be honest, I don't really have much issue kind of going through the report and interpreting it. I think my only thought is the risk of asking for essentially two separate reports. If a lot of the substance of this report is already being provided to committee, I would really say want a duplicated report, because that would put extra workload on the team. Not to say that changes couldn't potentially be made, but I think that's my only thought, is I don't want a chuckload of extra work into the team.
If I might just say, Chair, that I think this report as well was one of the reports that started off, as you remember, as 4 reports, and in an attempt to try and obviously streamline the meetings and the papers that we were bringing to you. We obviously changed the format to try and get everything concisely in one report. Obviously, that was done probably a couple of cycles ago. So I think from that point of view, you know, it might be a bit of trial and error in terms of getting that 100% right. So if there are small changes we can make, I'm happy to kind of tweak it maybe if that would help. But I think maybe just the context of where we've come from with this report and obviously trying to put it into one maybe has caused some issues as well.
Okay, thank you everyone for sort of comments on some, you know, sort of an ideas. I think maybe based on your comments, we should just leave it as it is for the time being. It's obviously the majority seem to prefer this, and I'm happy to continue working on me understanding what you're now doing.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment. I remember when I first joined the board, and that was right at the beginning, how the papers were back then, and it's a definite improvement. And yeah, we were asking for executive summaries right at the beginning because we didn't have those. So, I mean, it's definitely improved over the years. So,
Thank you all. We've been asked to note the contents of the report, note the admission of transfer admission bodies, of ABM Catering, Caterlink Limited, Central Cleaning Company, Compass Group UK and Ireland, Competitive Cleaning Services, Edwards and Blake. Note that one employer joined the fund as a designation body, that being Barrington Parish Council, and one employer joining as a scheduled body, which is Hells Educational Trust Limited. Cessation of 4 admission agreements, advanced cleaning services at both Burwell Village College and Wetheralls Primary, Caterlink Limited and Edwards and Blake at Godmanchester Academy and Community Academy. Note the cessation of the 2 scheduled bodies, that's Crossall Infant School and Crossall Junior School, and to review the risk register located in appendices 7 and 8. It may be that some of those still have outstanding questions. If so, can we take those offline, please? But otherwise, I will take it that we have completed this review. The next item is the annual board report. And Sophie, can I ask you to lead on this one?
Thank you. The report attached in Appendix 1 summarises the work of the board during 2024 and 25. The report will be presented to full council in December alongside reports from the Pension Fund Committee and Audit Accounts Committee. The board is asked to recommend that full council notes the content of the report.
Are there any questions on the annual report? If there are no questions, then we are being asked to recommend that full council note the contents of that report. Can I just have a show of hands that you're happy to do so? Show of hands. Thank you. Mem Khan, thank you very much. We now have the agenda plan. And with the caveat on January's meeting that was covered earlier in the meeting, are there any questions on the agenda plan? So there being no questions, the agenda plan is duly noted. Thank you. Right, we will now move to items for which it is necessary to exclude the press and public. So this is a question that do members agree to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the agenda contains exempt information under paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, and that it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed, information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. So that is a question. Do members agree? Show of hands, please, that you agree. Thank you. As this is the final item on the agenda, on the public item on the agenda, I would like to express my thanks to those members of the public and press who have taken the time to watch the meeting today via the Council's website. The broadcast will now end. Okay.